Zbog čega je Hamas započeo ovaj rat? Da li se Izrael nalazi u najtežim vremenima još od 1948. godine?
It's definitely the hardest time for Israel since 1948. I can even understand why people in Israel are comparing this, what happened on that Saturday, 7th of October, to even earlier and darker time in our history, which is the Holocaust. Because also in 1948, we fought against armies. The situation was difficult, but we never faced such atrocities of people going from door to door, from house to house, and killing every Jew because he's Jew. In 1948, nobody had tried to kill babies. My grandparents were fighting in the kibbutz I grew up in against the Egyptian army. Very, very tough fights for many, many days. Nobody was even thinking of going and trying to massacre babies like we have seen now. Nobody raped young girls who came to dance in a party. So I think what we have seen in Israel on Saturday, October 7th, in the level of brutality and cruelty and inhumanity is taking us back even 8 years ago, not just for 1948.
Koga smatrate krivim za izbijanje rata i da li je Izrael uhvaćen nespreman?
Well, the short answer, definitely. Israel was caught off guard, but it has nothing to do with your first part of the question. There is only one side to be blamed because there is only one side who perpetrated this attack on Israel's soil, not only by launching thousands of rockets, but for the first time, and this is where we were taken off guard absolutely, by violating our sovereignty, our borders, and penetrating more than 30 Israeli communities and army bases and slaughtering 1,500 Israelis and kidnapping, taking hostage more 200 civilians against, among them 85 years old Holocaust survivor and 9-month-old baby. These are the enemies that we are dealing with.
Da li je Izrael spreman za kopnenu ofanzivu? Šta bi bila inicijalna kapisla da Izrael krene u kopnenu invaziju Gaza?
We are not waiting for reasons. We have all the reasons in the world to start the offensive, and I believe we are ready for the offensive. I'm not getting information, and even if I would, definitely I will not share it with the media, but honestly, I don't have the information on when and how exactly. But absolutely, I think the world should understand. And thank God many of the world leaders do understand. This is not just another cycle of violence. October 7th events changed the rules of the game, and we are now engaging in a different ball game. And this will be long, and this will be difficult. We are engaging in a war against Hamas, not against Palestinian people. We are not aiming on killing the Palestinians of Gaza. We are not aiming on destroying Gaza just for fun or for revenge. We are engaging in a war to crack down and to eliminate Hamas power as a political power and military power. And that's what we are doing. Believe me, if Israel wished to destruct Gaza and kill Palestinians, we could have done it in 48 hours. That's not where we are looking for.
Da li imate saznanja koji je plan Izraela nakon što uđe u pojas Gaze?
Again, this is tactical plans which I have no way to know, and probably again, if had I knew, I would not start sharing it with the people, right? But again, I don't think this is the most important element right now. Very important to emphasize again and again. We have called for more than 48 hours now for every civilians to leave the northern parts of Gaza in order not to be affected by the Israeli attack. Once again, I am not aware of any other army in the world who is issuing such warnings for people before the attack. We do so because we understand that the only way to engage against these animals is to remain human and to do what we are doing under the international law on armed conflicts. Israel is a reliable and democratic country, we are fully obliged by the international law, and we will conduct our operation in Gaza accordingly.
Da li je Hamas krenuo u psihološki rat protiv Izraela?
Hamas is waging every possible war of a terrorist organization, absolutely. A psychological war is definitely part of it, and we understand that we will see more and more videos of the hostages people, of course, using every possible way to terrorize their families in the Israeli public. We are ready for that, we are aware of that, and we will do whatever is necessary to get rid of this threat for us.
Da li postoji mogućnost da se rat proširi na čitav Bliski istok?
The possibility is always there, but definitely not by our side. Although we are facing not the same threat, but much stronger and bigger threat from Hezbollah in Lebanon, but we have no intention whatsoever to solve it right now. We are now in a war with those who waged the war against us, the most brutal war that was ever waged against Israel, and this is Hamas. If other players in the Middle East will make the mistake and decide to intervene, they will pay a very heavy price as well. We are ready for that. We don't want to do it. It's not our interest. But if we will need, Lebanon and whoever will bear the responsibility, because if it's Hezbollah, with all the respect that they're Iranian proxy, if they will attack Israel from Lebanon, Lebanon will be destroyed.
Da li postoji među Izraelcima strah od ujedinjenja čitavog arapskog sveta? Jer nedavno smo čuli izjave različitih lidera koji pozivaju na ujedinjenje čitavog islamskog i arapskog sveta.
I want to believe that not only Arabs or Muslims, everyone in this planet should support Israel's crackdown on Hamas, like most of the countries in the world supported cracking down on ISIS or Al-Qaeda, all similar terrorist elements. Look, no peace can ever be achieved between us and the Palestinians as long as there is support and there is an entity like Hamas, either in Gaza or in the West Bank. So even those who are supporting the future peace, which at the moment it's almost impossible for anyone to even foresee, have to support Israel's war against Hamas. And if I'm surprised by such remarks, no, but I'm disappointed. I really wished and hoped that everyone, again, from the Arab world to the Muslim world to everywhere, and thank God most of the Western world do understand Israel's position. They must be united against terrorism, not against Israel.
Izrael je izašao iz pojasa Gaza 2006. godine i prepustili su upravljanje Palestincima. Čime su onda to Palestinci nezadovoljni? Ako ste im prepustili da upravljaju tom oblašću?
Oh, I hope this question you should ask the Palestinian ambassador, for those who are still bluntly claiming that it's all because of the occupation. Because, as you rightly mentioned, there is no occupation in Gaza since 2006. And I think people should ask themselves how come they are now complaining on there is lack of food or shortage of food and other things in Gaza, but the only thing which they have no shortage with is rockets, to keep launching rockets against Israeli cities. Because instead of governing their people, instead of turning Gaza into Dubai or Singapore or who knows what, instead of investing the huge amount of money that was poured into Gaza from Qatar mostly, into factories, into agriculture, into health system, into education system, to improve their lives, every penny went to tunnels and rockets in order to attack Israel. For what? For what? What kind of occupation they want to end with this? I mean, people can really ask themselves were there any goals for this brutal attack on Israeli civilians? Do they want us to do what? We already gave them Gaza. So what can be any kind of justification, the sickest possible explanation for such brutal attacks. But talking about the Israeli occupation is ridiculous.
Ali složit ćete se da je jako teško živjeti u pojasu koji je 360 metara, kvadratnih kilometara, gdje živi više od 2 miliona ljudi. Uslovi su teški.
Of course I agree. But I think it's about time that the world will stop taking Israel responsible for everything that's happening with the Palestinians since 1948. I'm not sure if we have time for a history lesson, but from November 29, 1947, Israel was the one side who is always willing to compromise. We were willing to compromise in November 47. We declared our statehood only on our part of that same resolution from 1947. It was not us who invaded ourselves. It was the Arab armies who invaded to Israel and caused for what they call Nakba. They are the one who is responsible for the creation of the refugees problem. They are the ones who is in charge of these refugees all over the Middle East. The only refugees that no one is trying to rehabilitate, because they want them to remain in this status of refugees in order to put pressure on Israel. So instead of the world start taking them accountable for what they are doing, the cynical way they are playing with these poor people, keeping them in those horrible conditions for 75 years, only in order to put pressure on Israel. I think that's the question people should ask, how it happened and why it happened. And same now. Hamas is brutally attacking Israel, and Israel is to be blamed for what will be the consequences for their people. It's cynical, it's ridiculous, and I think it's about time that the world will bear responsibility and take these people accountable for what they are doing.
Vredi pomenuti da su Palestinci više puta odbili pomoć Izraela u sprečavanju katastrofe Palestine. Recimo 2022. godine su odbili nisu prihvatili predlog o primirju. Izrael je pristao na to. Kako to komentarišete? I koliko puta su do sada Palestinci odbili saradnju sa Izraelcima?
That's the exact precise description of what happened since. And you asked me before about the refugees. Do you know how many Jews were refugees after the Second World War? Did you ever hear us blaming Germany, blaming the Arab countries that all the Israeli refugees came out of in 1948, in the 50s? No, we took care of our refugees, and they become part of our nation. We are not keeping them as refugees and blaming the whole world. And exactly the same what you just asked about the attempts to achieve peace. The Palestinians, and again, I'm saying it's very unfortunate for them, and I'm afraid they are now doing the exact same mistake. Every time there was an attempt to achieve peace in the Middle East, and of course, it was always not perfect from their end. It cannot be perfect before you start negotiate. People who think that, well, we will sit and negotiate only when we agreed upon everything, it's nonsense. But there were many times, I think very genuine offers on the table, either by the Americans or by you name it. And every time Israel said, yes, let's sit and talk, and the Palestinians reacted by violence and terrorism. In 93, in 2000, in 2006, every time the same. We come to negotiate, we don't agree about everything, it's part of the negotiation. But instead of talking about the issues, they start to release this some kind of, I don't know, maybe they think it's a good way to pressure Israel, to terrorize our streets with suicide bombers and other ways of terrorism. It never worked, and it will never work this time. And that's why I'm saying, if Palestinian leaders of the Palestinian Authority will not distance themselves from these brutal animals who perpetrated these most horrific terrorist acts against our civilians, they will never be able to sit with us in the negotiation table. This distinction cannot be more clear than under these circumstances of crimes against humanity.
Više puta ste rekli, a i sama izraelska vlada, da Palestinci nisu odgovorni za ovaj napad, već Hamas. A vi ste nedavno i uporedili Hamas sa ISIS-om. Koje su sličnosti između ove dve terorističke organizacije?
I think there are two main similarities. One is the ideology, the philosophy behind their brutality, which again has nothing to do with kind of legitimate political causes. Like ISIS didn't want the Americans out of a certain part of Iraq or Syria, but engage into a jihad, a holy war against non-Muslims. This is the same ideology of Hamas. Once again, there is no territorial dispute between Israel and Gaza. Nothing, not 1 square meter. We pulled out from Gaza completely. And what Hamas have done is, or their charter is exactly the same: to kill Jews as they are, to destruct Israel, not to sit, not to live side by side, and also the measures they're taking, the brutality, this unheard of violence and crimes against human beings. I'm not aware of any so-called army who would do what these butchers have done to our civilians. I mean, terrorist organizations who are raping women, who are kidnapping babies and old ladies and men. For what? Can this ever be justified by anything? So I think both the ideology and the measures they are taking to exercise their ideology is similar. And that's why I think many countries in Europe do understand that, and they support Israel because they know that this is not against Israel. This is against Israel today, and tomorrow it will be in the gates of Europe.
So you want to say, for example, when ISIS was in Syria, they didn't want to negotiate with them. They attacked them. It's the same with Hamas. You should not negotiate with them. It's terroristic organization.
Negotiate what? Negotiate what? To negotiate with the people who handicapped our babies and women and men, to tell them to do what? Please, next time don't do it. I mean, what kind of negotiation one can even expect against such brutal elements that, and again, there is nothing to negotiate, because how can you, even if we leave aside the brutality, we can talk about the goals. I can negotiate with people who accept the principle that we should live there side by side with them. So then we can negotiate. The border will be here or there. What will be the status of Jerusalem? Who can enter those two entities? Whatever. There is the room for negotiation. There is no room for negotiation with people who want to kill you all, and that is the Hamas charter. And by the way, this is exactly what would have happened to us in 1948 had we not win. From the very beginning, we had only one chance. You know, Ben Gurion, our first prime minister, said, if we win this war, we just postpone the next war in a few years. But if we lose, there will be no next war, because we were not going to be here. That's exactly what my grandparents felt when they fought in 1948. That very few against the Egyptian army. That there is no way to retreat. There is no retreat. In our back is only the Mediterranean Sea, where they want to push us. So this is not kind of enemy that you can negotiate with. There is no room for negotiation with people who want just to kill you. And as we could see on Saturday, not just to kill you, but to kill you and in the most horrific way humanity have seen.
Dakle, Palestinci moraju da se oslobode Hamasa u svojoj organizaciji. Na koji način Izrael želi da to postigne? Na koji način želi da, to jest hoće da smakne Hamasa sa vlasti u Palestini?
Well, I wish the Palestinians would share those same goals, that they want to get rid of Hamas. I think that's exactly what I said before. That should be a common goal of everyone. How we are going to do it, I'm be very honest with you, I don't know. Thank God I'm not sitting in those positions that have to decide how to do it, because it cannot be easy. Especially again because, as I mentioned before, we don't want to engage in a war against the Palestinian people. We don't want to bombard entire Gaza and then kill those 50,000 militants of Hamas alongside millions of Palestinians. On the contrary, we want to be able to pinpoint and to attack only those who are deserved to be killed. And that's what makes it so complicated and what will make it probably a very long operation. Because if you try to make it shorter, you will have more casualties of non-combatant, which nobody wants.
Šta je potrebno da Izrael uradi da bi se selo za pregovarački sto, a šta Palestina?
Well, again, at this point, I cannot even foresee how and with whom we will be able to sit and talk. You have to listen to all those Israelis who were murdered and butchered among all those kibbutzim alongside Gaza. These are the most peaceful elements in the Israeli society. You know, in one of these kibbutzim of Kfar Aza, where more than 100 people were butchered, entire families, people were preparing kites, to fly kites on that same afternoon as part of their some kind of a peace manifestations, to go to the border, fly those kites and kind of talk to the other side and show them that they want to live in peace with them. That's the nature of the people. And now if you listen to these people, the survivors of that massacre, you will hear completely different voices. This is the main voice now coming out of Israel, which I cannot expect anything else with society that, you know, there are kibbutzim over there that 25% of the community either massacred or now in Gaza. In Kfar Aza and Be'eri, the two largest kibbutzim, more than 100 people were slaughtered. And by the way, we are still finding day by day. We are 13 days after, you know, these people were burned in their houses. So we are still finding victims that we hoped they are in Gaza, but they are not. Families that are getting, you know, more and more members of the family that getting those horrible notice from the government that we found the remains of the body of a child, of a grandmother. So I really don't even can dream or think about when the Israeli public will be ever willing again to talk peace. But nevertheless, of course, it's inevitable. We will have to sit and talk peace with the reasonable Palestinians. But this very far and very premature at this point. Now we engage in a war, which again was not our interest. Everything that we have done in the recent months before this brutal attack on October 7th was on the exact opposite direction. We opened the border, we gave more, we increased the number of permits for Palestinians to come to work and make a living in Israel on the days before, from 17,000 to 20,000. And we were engaged with Hamas leadership or with the world how to improve their standard of living of the poor Palestinians that Israel is always blamed for in Gaza. And what did we get in return? You know, we are now investigating those we could arrest in Israel. There were people who came to work in these kibbutzim to make a living for their families, and then when they came back to Gaza, they were spies of Hamas to tell them exactly the map of the kibbutz, where to go and how to attack this place. These are the people we are dealing with. So I can tell you that even the strongest believers in peace with the Palestinians are now, I cannot even imagine how many of them left in my country at the moment.
Nedavno ste izjavili da bi ambasador Palestine u Srbiji trebalo da bude na vašoj strani, odnosno na strani Izraela. Na šta ste konkretno mislili po tim? Da li to znači da treba da bude na strani pravde?
I mean by that if he is representing, and I hope and want to believe he is representing the Palestinian Authority, which is the legitimate government, so-called, of the Palestinian people, who are in favor of negotiation with Israel, he should be in our same side of condemning strongly such attacks by Hamas, which are again against the interest of the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people, if anyone think that this brutal attack will bring their statehood 1 inch closer, unfortunately, they are very wrong. What was done on October 7th will postpone any possible future peace with Israel in many decades. So I would expect them to understand that this is not the interest of the Palestinian people, and they should be the first to condemn, together with us, such actions.
Da li možemo u skoroj budućnosti da očekujemo konačno rešenje, odnosno da se stavi tačka na ovo pitanje?
Once again, because I don't see these events of October 7th as part of the conflict, I think we should first and foremost separate what is going on now in Gaza, our reaction to those attacks, and the conflict. This is two separate issues. First, we must crack down on Hamas, eliminate their political and military power in Gaza. It will take time, but we will do it. Israel is strong enough to handle this difficult task. And then we will have to find with whom and how to resume negotiation. And very honestly, I cannot see or imagine at this point, when we are all in a national grief now in Israel, and I know the world is not seeing the same photos or pictures. I believe in many parts of the world people just moved on, but because that's what I'm doing every day when I'm giving interviews. But when I'm going every afternoon and open the Israeli channels and see and hear all those stories, it will take us years again. And you know, if I have to express my feelings, so the first one is definitely sadness. I'm, for the last 13 days, very, very sad person. But my second would be I'm very, very pessimistic. And I was, for most of my life, I wanted to be optimistic, and I wanted to believe that, you know, we always say in Israel that every parent is telling when he has babies that I hope you will not need to serve in the army when you come 18. I did the same. I told my two boys who are now in the army 22 years ago, that's when my first son was born, that I hope you will not serve in the army. And now I can tell him, please go and do whatever you need, including, unfortunately, risking your own lives, because this is the most justified war that Israel have engaged into for many years, many years. I cannot recall, maybe the 73 war was so justified like this one. There is no other choice. We can talk about different events, we had conflicts in the past, not about this one. This one is, and every Israeli understand that, and that's why we have thousands of Israelis rushing back to Israel from every place in the world, because every Israeli understand this is a war for our homeland. This is the war for the future of Israel, because if Hamas will not be dismantled this time, people not only cannot live safely and will not come back to live in those parts that were attacked now, we will not be able to live securely anywhere in the country of Israel.